Hi, this is Kandice Garcia, Quality Manager in the Department of Radiology at Stanford University, and this is the Radiology Improvement Team Education course. Today's discussion is on processes. Processes serve as the basis for modern standards of living. They are a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end, and involves trained individuals using tools and methods working in facilities to transform some form of inputs into some form of outputs. Every modern enterprise has hundreds, thousands, and often millions of processes. In complex environments, processes have specific objectives and standardized methods to achieve these objectives. So, for example, let's say you love to bake. You study for years, experiment, have lots of failures, and eventually become a master at baking cakes. You decide to open your own bake shop. At first you struggle to attract customers, but eventually the word gets out and you become very busy. Pretty soon, you're too busy to manage the baking, the cleaning, the customer management, and the finances, so you hire somebody to manage the business. Then there comes a time when you can't possibly bake all the cakes yourself, so you hire an assistant. But you're too successful to just have one assistant, so you hire an entire team of bakers. After a while, you find that you're so successful that you open up another bake shop, and then another, and another, and another. Pretty soon that you're so successful that you barely give to an individual bake shop because you're so busy visiting all of them, while also interviewing applicants, meeting customers, giving interviews to the press, negotiating with suppliers, reviewing budgets, giving reports to investors, and so forth. So, here's the first question. Remember the things that made you successful in the first place? It was baking cakes. It was baking great cakes. Beautiful, delicious cakes with a personal touch for birthdays, weddings, and anniversaries and all kinds of parties, on time, as ordered, with a smile. Here's the second question. How are you going to make sure that those cakes will still be baked with the same care, the same attention to detail, with the same style? How will all those customers who wanted your cakes still feel like they're getting your cakes even though you haven't personally baked a cake in your own bake shop for years? The answer? Processes. Again, a process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. In other words, there are two main elements: what the product is supposed to look like, and what actions or steps that should be taken to get it to look the way it's supposed to. In your shops, you develop a certain style of cakes and certain methods you use to achieve that style. To make sure that you get the same quality every time, no matter who is baking the cakes, you develop recipes, you purchase certain kinds of tools and certain kinds of ovens. You have a standard as to what they're supposed to look like, and you constantly check the cakes against that standard. You train master bakers in each shop as to what the standard looks like and what methods, tips, and tricks you have to achieve it. These standards are what allow you to consistently do great work in the most efficient way possible. You develop standard work that consists of what cakes should look like and how they should get there. It's not that you don't trust your employees, it's just that you've made so many mistakes for so many years that you've figured out pretty well what works and what doesn't. The good news is that you are now the founder of a successful business that you started with your own skill and hard work, and you benefit from it financially. The bad news is that now you also bear all the risk, and those people who are working for you don't have the same level of knowledge or dedication. Also, a lot of problems start to arise because a large business is much more complex than a small business. So what happens? Well, you get an angry call from one of your customers that the cake that was delivered was not the one you ordered. You get an even angrier call from a customer with a wedding the next morning whose cake fell over on the delivery truck. And you notice that sales start to lag at one of the shops. And when you go to visit, you find that the quality of cake is just not up to par. So what do? You will need to put in place process controls. What are process controls, you might ask? Well, let's go to a different example for a minute. Let's say you live in a place with more extreme weather than California, and you want to keep your home at the same temperature all year long. What will you use? A thermostat. So how does a thermostat work? Well, it's perhaps the most simple form of process control. The thermostat contains a thermometer. You decide a set point, and if the temperature is too low, according to the thermometer, An electrical switch activates the natural gas heater in the blower system and heats the house until the thermometer reading hits a certain level. If the temperature is too high, a different switch activates in the air conditioning unit that stays on until temperature is in the specified range. Note that the thermostat does not actually directly control the temperature. It controls a process, namely the heater and the air conditioning, which act in a certain way in order to achieve an outcome, which is to regulate the temperature. Process control works by establishing a condition that you would like to achieve, then finding a method for achieving that condition, looking at what the current condition is, and then activating that method until you reach the desired condition. Processes contain a method for changing some input into some specified output. Process control is ubiquitous throughout manufacturing and service industries. It is the way that we know that things are going according to plan. Process control depends on feedback. However, you often don't get the feedback until the process is complete. When done correctly, process control contains a feedback loop that ensures that the right output is achieved on a consistent basis, and when it is not, it creates a condition to change the process in some way so that the outcomes are achieved consistently. Let's look at some examples of process controls. Process control may rely on direct visual feedback loop while you are creating a product, such as a cake or a radiograph. Process control may rely on quantitative measurement, such as the temperature of water, the length of a scan, or MR protocol parameters. It may rely on process checks, such as checklists, to make sure that each step of the process is performed. Or process controls may rely on performance data, such as a run chart that gives individual feedback on performance over time. Going back to the bakery business, you will likely implement many process controls. So let's put them into some categories. You may screen all of your potential hires to make sure that they have the requisite skills. You may have a supervisor inspect all cakes before they are sent out to the customer. You may purchase high-end ovens with convection heating and programmable timers to optimize cook time and temperatures. You may put in a checklist when cleaning the kitchen. You might train your employees in customer engagement and may send secret shoppers to test to see how they are doing. You may collect customer surveys to provide that feedback to the employees and the managers. Or you may look at sales and operational metrics and act based on those data. All of these are forms of process control, and they are a critical part of any business. If you do not have them, your business will likely suffer. And chances are that all of those customers who became diehard fans will only maintain their loyalty as long as you continue to supply a great product. As soon as the quality suffers, then you will lose them. And since you can no longer personally make every cake, you need to have some mechanism in place to ensure that the same tender loving care that is applied by everyone in the organization. This is not easy. To do it, you need processes, and then those processes need controls. So, in summary, processes take an input and, with trained individuals using specific methods and tools within a facility, create an output. Process controls ensure that your output consistently matches what you want your output to be. Process control depends on feedback loop. Remember that you don't ever have direct control over your outputs. You only have control over your inputs and your processes. Your process will produce what your process produces. If your process is producing something other than what you want it to produce, then you need to change your process somehow to make it so it produces what you want it to produce. In our next session, we'll learn about the concept of statistical process control, or how we use measurement to determine how well controlled our processes are, and when we should intervene based on data. Until then, enjoy the satisfaction that you've built a successful business starting from scratch, based on well-designed processes and process controls. Thank you for watching. I'm Kandice Garcia, and this is the Radiology Improvement Team Education course at Stanford University.